Me and my boyfriend have been together for 3 months, and several things have happened during this time that I'm not sure are red flags of just us adjusting to each other. Posted by you/China Redflick. I, 25F, will refer to my boyfriend, 31M, as X. To put things into context, he comes from a powerful and wealthy family in my city, relevant later. Things started off peachy, he was always affable, pleasant, and accommodating. However, I'm starting to realize certain issues which have me questioning everything. Incident number 1. He got mad at me because he felt I wasn't appreciating an expensive present. He got me a specialized tech gadget which cost about 4K. I was a bit surprised by it as I'd never mentioned any inclination towards this gadget. I'm really not very techy at all, and he'd never asked me about it. Also, this gadget is something which requires a lot of time and practice to use. To be honest, I was also very concerned that it had cost so much. If I had known, I would have just told him to get me something less expensive. Anyway, I still thanked him and said that I appreciated it very much. A week or so later, he asked me if I had used it yet, to which I answered no but said I would eventually get around to it. He got upset and repeatedly asked me if he had just wasted his time, effort, and money, and told me that if that was the case, I should just dump the thing. Incident number 2. He blew up at me when I was at the gym at midnight. Fitness is very important to me, so I always make sure to go to the gym consistently. I usually go right after work, which ends at 6 p.m., however sometimes life happens, friends want to meet up, overtime, dinner, I get distracted reading, watching videos, etc., and I go later. One day I went at 10:30 p.m., before I left, I told him I was heading to the gym, and he said okay then silence, so I assumed he was doing his own thing. Off I went and had a good workout. I was done around 12 a.m., checked my phone, and there were 12 missed calls from him. I immediately called him back and was met by him yelling at me, demanding to know why I hadn't been answering my phone. Didn't I know what time it was? Didn't I know what sort of impression it was giving for me to be around other half-naked sweaty guys this late? He was too old to be chasing his girl around in the middle of the night, etc. I was honestly shocked at this because even when we started dating I would tell him when I went to the gym, even late, and he didn't seem to have any issues. Incident number 3. He told me he didn't feel attractive nor desirable when I asked if we could reschedule to 1 hour later. We planned to meet up on Saturday afternoon. On Friday night, he called me and we ended up talking on the phone until pretty late, around 3 a.m. Because of that, I overslept on Saturday and woke up late. I texted him telling him I overslept, and I would probably be taking an hour or so more to come over. He told me that he felt I didn't seem interested in him or our relationship anymore and that he was the only enthusiastic one. I tried to tell him that it wasn't the case, I just needed some more me time, it's the weekend and my only time to sleep in, but he still told me he didn't feel loved in this relationship and that we didn't see each other enough. Context: we usually see each other one day during the work week and I spend the weekend at his. Incident number 4. He told me I was going to get us into a fight. We were getting ice creams, we were laughing, and everything was going great. We were sitting in the ice cream parlor and he playfully put his hand on my knee, which I don't mind. I actually find that pretty cheeky and cute. Then he started to move his hand higher up my thigh, to which I told him to stop. I was still smiling and laughing. He didn't though, and I said again, I said stop, cut it out. But he still kept going, and I told him I was going to yell and I said stop. Loudly. Immediately the whole mood dropped and he told me that I could have gotten us into a fight. What if someone had reacted badly and attacked him, and he retaliated, and everyone could have gotten into trouble? Incident number 5. He got mad when I talked to another guy. We went on a holiday recently and signed up for a tour which was 8 to 9 hours, a pretty long time to be spending with the same bunch of people all going to the same places and doing the same things together. On the same tour was another guy, I'll call him A, around our age who was traveling alone. X and he got talking, about guy stuff, work, sports, current issues, I don't know, and they seemed to like each other really well. I was happy that X had made a friend and they were getting along, and I just chilled and let them be. At the end of the tour when we were heading back, I also got into a conversation with A about what he thought of the tour, what else he was going to do on this trip, etc. During my conversation, X kept butting in, asking me abrupt irrelevant questions completely unrelated to the context of my conversation with A, so I wasn't very responsive as I was engaged in my conversation. When we got back, X told me that he had felt I had ignored him and was more interested in A than in spending time with him. He also said that if we had been back home, he would have told A to get lost so that the two of us could just spend time together, but because we were here, in a foreign country, if A had reacted badly and they had gotten into a fight and all of us ended up in a police station, we would be screwed because nobody knew of him or his family in this place. Incident number 6. He was getting me to apply sunblock on him because he didn't want to get his hands dirty. It started off as him asking me to put sunblock on his back. I'm okay helping him with that because he can't reach it himself, and then he just told me that I should go on and do the rest, which I found kind of funny and princessy of him, so I did. But by the third day of our trip, I was getting tired of it and told him that he should just sunblock himself. I would help him with his back if he couldn't reach, but he could damn well do the rest on his own. He said, but my hands will get dirty, and I responded, oh, so it's okay for me to get my hands dirty but not okay for you? He made a face and said, well, this is new, I've never dated a girl like this. I still stuck to my guns though and did not apply sunblock on the rest of him. Incident number 7. He told me that my past bothered him. When I was younger, I was very sheltered and very religious. A few years ago I realized that I had no clue about dating, being physically intimate, etc. As a result, I ended up hooking up casually for a while before realizing that casual isn't for me. I focused on purely dating to know someone better, without sleeping with them, and focusing on looking for lasting relationships. I was honest with X about this, that I went through this phase of casual hookups, before I met him. At the time when I shared this with him, he seemed okay and told me that he had also done similarly during the college phase. However, we were talking about it again recently and he told me that it's different for guys than it is for girls and that he felt that what I had done was bothersome to him. I countered that I had been honest, it was a while ago, and I am happy and comfortable with the person I am today regardless of anything in the past. If this was an issue for him, he should not have gotten into a relationship with me. In fact, I told him that if this was something he couldn't get past, then he could go ahead and move on right away. Incident number 8. He, sort of, broke up with me but ended up not going through with it. When I told him that he could go ahead and move on if he couldn't get past my sexual history, he paused for a while, then said, well, I did try. I wasn't sure if this was him asking for a breakup, so I asked, does this mean we're done? And he said, I guess. He started to leave and I told him, take care and all the best. As he was going about gathering his stuff, he kept saying things like I'm sorry we couldn't make it work. I did really have a good time, etc., and I said, you don't have to apologize or try to make me feel better. It's fine really. He hesitated and said, are we both sure that this is what we both want? I said to him, well, it seems like it's what you want. To which he said, no, it's not what I want. I thought it was what you wanted, which I said I meant that if he couldn't get past my history, he could go ahead and move on, but otherwise I was willing to continue our relationship. We eventually ended up not breaking up lol. After that, he told me that it bothered him that I could have let things go so easily. So, I don't know, am I just being irrational or is this legit? Are we still getting used to each other and can we make this work? Top/relevant comments. Commenter. You've been dating 3 months and have 8 examples of him acting the fool, being jealous, getting mad for no reason, and one of them is a breakup. Yes, honey. Yes. These flags are so red. Dump. 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 Commenter 2. Yeah, this is a collection of red flags. I'd say there's a bit of love bombing too, with expensive gifts to create a sense of indebtedness, not to mention the pushing of boundaries. This guy is all kinds of nope. Op's response. Op here. I'm on mobile now, and for some reason Reddit won't let me log into my other account. You're right. In fact, being with him has me questioning everything I used to do so regularly and openly, i.e., sleeping in, going to the gym, grabbing lunch with platonic single guy friends, sleeping in, etc. I find myself asking if he would be okay with this, or if he would get upset if I did that. I also find myself constantly checking my phone because I worry if he texts me and I take too long before replying, if I was occupied at work, having a conversation with someone else, working out, etc., or if he happens to call and I don't pick up, in case he gets worked up and flies into a rage. Op adds in the comments more on the relationship. He's never been physically violent, but when he's mad he gets really outraged and shouts to express himself. It really disturbs and upsets me, as I believe that things can always be resolved by calmly discussing and talking through issues to come up with a resolution, not yelling and losing one's temper. I'm supposed to go on a hike and have lunch with a platonic guy friend next weekend, and even this has got me anxious as to whether X would take contention with it when I tell him that I would also like to spend my weekend with another person, a guy more so. Op in another comment. You're right. Once, when we were out, I bumped into a guy friend of mine whom I hadn't seen in a long time, so I smiled and waved. As soon as we had passed, X turned to me and started making all sorts of comments like, I'm better looking than him anyway, I drive a nicer car, I probably have a better background and family than him. He also said that it was inconsiderate of me to be excited over another guy when I was on a date with my boyfriend. Update 6 weeks later. After making the post, I reevaluated the relationship and had a talk with X. Against my better judgment, I decided to give him another chance. Anyway, I'll get to the incident, which was the straw that broke the camel's back. Last Sunday, I inquired whether we could spend the coming Friday night together so we could get an early start to the weekend. He replied that he would let me know how his schedule worked with that. The following day, Monday, I received a dinner invite for Friday from a bunch of good friends. Since X hadn't confirmed with me on his schedule yet, I assumed things were still up in the air with him, so I accepted the invitation. I informed X that I would be doing dinner with my friends, so I would be meeting him a couple of hours later than I had initially suggested. He flipped out on me. He yelled and screamed at me on the phone, cursing me out and demanding to know who was so effing important I was going to meet. He asked me if a frivolous dinner with mere friends meant more to me than spending time with my significant other. I responded that of course I valued my significant other, however there were other people I also liked to have in my life. He told me I could go and date those people then. He went on about how I was incredibly disrespectful towards his time and that I was jerking him around. I told him that I didn't see how that counted as being disrespectful of his time since it was only Monday and the invite was for Friday. I was keeping him updated on the dinner well in advance so that he could plan his time for those couple of hours. It wasn't as though I was pushing plans back at the very last minute or even canceling on him. I told him that in my perspective, since he had yet to get back to me on his schedule, I had the impression that we weren't confirmed, hence I accepted the invite. I also told him that from my point of view, when I make plans with someone for the whole weekend and they push things back a couple of hours, for whatever reason, it wouldn't be a big deal to me, so I didn't see why he was being so drastic. He then said to enjoy myself with my friends and that he hoped the dinner would be worth the cost of our relationship. I responded okay. There's still some stuff that both of us have at each other's places, though, so we're meeting up later this week to return things. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I read your previous post. That guy was in the early stages of emotionally abusing you. He also behaved like a effing child, too poetious to apply his own sunscreen, and an all-around terrible partner. I'm almost certain he will try to get back with you, and sooner rather than later. As soon as you get all your stuff back, block the hell out of this asshole. Commenter 2. Well, it's a little worrying that even after all the red flags in your last post, it took another few weeks for you to break up, and even then, it was only because he broke it off. But at least it seems to have worked out. Pretty incredible to believe this guy's 31. This is the type of behavior I would have expected from a teenager with no experience being in a relationship or being an adult. Commenter 3. When you are exchanging stuff, it would be smart to take a friend or family member with you. Not only for your own personal safety, but also to keep yourself accountable. There are a few ways he can react. He will either be very calm and just give your stuff back, make an emotional drama which can escalate, or try to get you back. Best of luck moving forward. Additional info from Up. Hi everyone. Just an update. The exchange went smoothly. As per the suggestions of all here, I went with a friend who's a semi-pro MMA fighter. X seemed pretty upset and was being really nice to me and wanted to hug it out when we met. I grabbed my stuff, dropped his, and noped out of there. Also, I gave that $4,000 thingamajig back. I'm not interested in keeping any remnants of him around, nor giving any possible reason for him to contact me again in the future. Thank you all so much for your concern and advice. Lots of love.